My name's Ethan, and I'm 32. I don't often connect with my family anymore. Not out of indifference, but because every attempt feels like I'm cast as the bad guy in a drama I never signed up for. Growing up, I was the problem solver. Dependable one, summoned whenever a tire blew out, bills piled up, or someone needed a last-minute move across town. That all shifted 5 years ago when my father died. It wasn't just the grief that hit me. It was the chaos that followed. The battle over his estate. It was like a storm tore through us. My mother and her brother, Uncle Carl, schemed to control everything Dad left behind. They assumed I'd cave, like always. Don't know why I agreed to show up for Thanksgiving this year. Maybe I thought things might be different. Maybe I was lonely. Or maybe I just needed to see if the bridges I'd left smoldering were nothing but dust now. Mom called me 2 weeks prior, promising a true family gathering. She stressed family like it carried a hidden meaning. I should pay attention to that. I wavered but agreed, offering to bring dessert. I splurged on a pecan pie from that bakery on 9th Street everyone used to love. It wasn't cheap, but I figured if I was stepping into a war zone, I'd at least arrive with a peace offering. The second I entered my old home, the atmosphere hit me. Heavy, like I'd walked into a performance where everyone knew their lines except me. My cousin Sarah gave me a quick half-hug, the warmest greeting I got. Mom barely glanced up from the stove. Uncle Carl was already at the head of the table, acting like he ruled the place. He welcomed me with a smirk that didn't touch his eyes. "Well, look who showed up," he said. "Vintage Carl." I didn't bite. Just placed the pie on the counter and shed my jacket. Dinner was strained from the start. No one made room for me at the main table, despite 3 empty chairs. I stood there, fumbling with my phone, pretending to be busy. My younger cousin, Jake, eventually dragged a folding chair from the basement. I sat at the table's edge, barely able to reach the green beans. Every few bites I caught murmurs, not even quiet ones, about people who think they're above their kin or those who only show up for a free meal. "He was toasting royalty, you know," he announced, loud enough for all to hear. "Not everyone here earns a place at this table." The room froze, save for the clatter of a spoon hitting a plate. I looked up. His eyes were locked on me. "Some folks only show up when they smell a payout." I stayed silent, chewing deliberately. It was a setup, and I wasn't falling for it. Mom let out a soft laugh. That cut deep. "Real family sticks around when times are tough," said, staring at her plate like I wasn't even there. It felt like a punch to the chest. I paused, keeping my composure. I scanned the table, faces I used to share Christmases and cookouts with, and saw only strangers who had already written me off. I stood, grabbed my jacket, and moved toward the door. No one stopped me. Some even looked relieved. I didn't speak. Just gave a tight smile, nodded, and stepped outside. The cold air stung, but it was a relief compared to the suffocation inside. I sat in my car for a while, breathing, watching the house's warm glow as they carried on without me. Then my mind drifted, not to the jabs or the silence, but to the safe, Dad's old safe, tucked behind the portrait in the den. Never cracked it after he died. They assumed it held nothing but old documents. That safe was my project. I helped Dad set it up as a teen. I knew the combination. I hadn't touched it since his passing, out of respect. Tonight, something shifted. I wasn't furious. Not it exactly. I was just done. Done being the scapegoat. Done being dismissed. Done letting them weaponize memories, and done watching them claim parts of Dad they never cared to know. I drove it around, grabbed a coffee, Let the night sink in. An hour later, I circled back. The house was still alive with chatter. I parked a block away, slipped through the back gate like I did as a kid. The shed was locked, but I knew by the side door. I was inside in minutes. The den was empty. Laughter and clinking dishes echoed from the dining room. Sarah was butchering a song on the piano. I moved quietly. My hands were steady as I lifted the portrait. Combination worked on the first try. Inside wasn't just papers. There was cash, bonds, a few small cases, Dad's silver watch, the title to the cabin by the lake, copies of his trust, letters addressed to me, sealed. I took it all, not frantically, not recklessly, just with calm purpose, like I was reclaiming what was mine. When I left, I secured the door behind me. No one noticed, no one suspected. By the time they cut into the pie, I was miles away. I didn't head into home. I drove to a quiet spot overlooking the city, where the lights sparkled below. I parked, killed the engine, and sat with the cases beside me. The top letter had my name in Dad's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I feared what it might hold. Maybe I was clinging to that last shred of childhood faith, the kind that says opening it might shift something forever. But I did read it. Eventually, it was brief, just a few sentences. Ethan, if you're reading this, you came back. I never doubted you would. You were always the one who noticed things. The one who saw people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. Everything here is yours. I hid it because I knew the others would claw at what's in plain sight. I trust you to handle what's worth keeping. Dad, that's when I cried, the only time that night. I sat with the letter in my hands, my breath clouding the windshield. The tears weren't for what my family did. Tears weren't for what my family did, were for what Dad managed to do, even years after he was gone. The next morning, the text started. First from Sarah. Hey, were you at the house last night? Then Mom, Ethan, call me now. And finally, Uncle Carl, true to form. What did you take? I ignored them. By noon, Sarah called. I let it go to voicemail. She texted again. The safe's empty. There was stuff in there we didn't know about. They're losing it. I chuckled. They didn't know about it. Of course not. They never asked. They just waited for scraps to fall their way. That's all they ever did. By afternoon, an unfamiliar number called. I afternooted, but curiosity won. Hello. Hello, I said, guarded. Ethan. It was Mom, but her voice wasn't angry, just weary. Please. We need to talk. I don't think we do, I replied evenly. You took things that were mine, she said. They were mine, I cut in. Want to read Dad's letter together? Silence, then a sigh. Ethan, your uncle's talking about lawyers. I'm sure he is, I said. Tell him I have a copy of the will. It's in the case. Why would you do this? She asked, not loud, not emotional, just hollow, like she still didn't understand. And that's when something in me gave, but not how she expected. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just hung up. I didn't argue. I just hung up. I listed the lake house on a high-end rental site, complete with a polished listing and fresh photos. Within 2 weeks, it was fully booked for 6 months. Peak season. Once the revenue started flowing, I sent a single screenshot to the family group chat. It showed the first month's earnings, $18,392. But I know the quiet won't hold. When the next message arrives, I'll be prepared. The group chat stayed silent longer than I anticipated. A day passed. Then another. I knew them too well to miss the signs. Frantic whispers, late night calls, probably a family huddle without me. Like always, they were reeling, scrambling to figure out how to handle me thriving outside their frame. I spent those days in calm, a rare kind of peace. I drove to the lake house to see it before the renters arrived, pulled into the driveway and gazed at the porch. Dad and I rebuilt, board by board. The railing we set up still stood strong. The pine we planted out back now towered over the roof. Inside, everything gleamed. New floors, modern appliances, a functioning fireplace. Yet the essence lingered. Memories hung like unseen snapshots. I stood in the living room, recalling Dad's chuckle, how he'd sit by the window with his coffee, staring at the lake like it held secrets. It felt right, like I'd finally claimed something they never valued. That night, sipping tea on the deck, I got a text from Sarah. "You actually rented it out, like fully?" I stared at it, debating a response. Finally, I typed, "Yeah, first booking's paid. Book through spring." Her reply came fast. "Mom's freaking out. Carl, too." They didn't know about the deed. Say you pulled something shady? But I saw the papers. "It's yours, right?" That surprised me. Sarah was never against me. Just quiet, uninvolved. A spectator. I paused, then texted, "It's mine. Dad gave it to me. He trusted me to handle it." She didn't reply immediately. The next evening, mid-dinner my nail doorbell rang. I live in a modest place just outside town. Unannounced visitors aren't a thing, so my gut twisted. Through the peephole, I saw Mom, hair pinned up, coat pristine, eyes sharp. I opened the door slowly. "Didn't expect you," I said. "Figured you wouldn't pick up my calls," she replied, stepping inside uninvited, as always. She scanned the room with that look, judgment masked as care. "This is where you live now?" "Yeah," I said, closing the door. "I like it." "You could have come back," she muttered, brushing a finger along my bookshelf. "We had a place for you." I crossed my arms. "You mean the folding chair?" At the table's edge, her face stiffened. "That wasn't about you," she said. "Then who was it for?" I asked softly, because it sure felt targeted. A long silence. She opened her mouth, then closed it, sitting on the couch's edge like it hurt. "Carl says, you took things from the safe. Family things. Wouldn't have wanted this rift," she added. "That was bold." "Mom," I said. "He wrote me a letter. Said it was all mine." She looked away. "He always leaned toward you. He trusted me," I corrected. "Maybe he saw what I didn't back then." She flinched, then sighed. "You don't know how hard it's been holding us together. Carl's money's tight, and not my burden anymore," I cut in. "You made that clear repeatedly." Her tone sharpened. "You're being harsh, Ethan. You're being harsh, Ethan." I leaned against the wall. "No, I'm being truthful. Drawer after you left. It's for you." My breath hitched. I took it carefully, like it might dissolve. She stood, smoothed her coat, read it. "Maybe you'll get it." She left without another word, the door clicking shut. I stood still for a long time. Then I sat at my desk and opened the envelope. Another letter, shorter, sharper than the first. "Ethan, if this reaches you after all the chaos, hear this. You don't owe forgiveness unless it's earned. Guard what's precious. Don't let guilt break you. If you feel alone, know I trusted you with the truth. That house is more than wood and stone. It's your anchor. Build from it. Proud of you. Always, Dad." I sat in the quiet, letter in hand, eyes burned. For the first time in years, I felt steady, not angry, not adrift, just certain. But that certainty didn't last. The next morning, a voicemail came from an unknown number. It was Carl. Voice too smooth, too controlled. "Hey, Ethan, we need to talk." There's something in your dad's trust we didn't know about. Felt too calculated, too polished, like he'd rehearsed it to balance concern and menace. I played it twice. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. I wasn't playing this game blind. Not anymore. I spent that afternoon at a nearby cafe, going over everything in my head. The safe, the trust, the lake house, the letter. Ray's voice kept echoing. We need to talk. Let's not make this ugly. That last part stuck with me. Let's not make this ugly. Playing nice, like it hadn't been ugly for years. When I finally left the cafe, I had 3 missed calls. 2 from Ray, 1 from Lily. The message from Lily was short. They're talking about suing, Ray says. Trust that might help them. I texted her back. There isn't. I checked. He says your dad altered the documents a year before he passed away. There's another version, he says. It names the family. Another version. I didn't like the sound of that. I called my lawyer again. We arranged to meet first thing in the morning, and then I drove back to the lake house. Not because I was scared, but because if they were planning something, I wanted to make sure my place was locked down. Literally, it was a quiet drive, and the house looked just like I'd left it, glowing softly in the golden light. The air smelled like pine and distant rain. I stepped inside and walked through every room, checking the locks, the windows, the basement door. Everything was fine, until I reached the study. On the floor near the fireplace was a boot print. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. I wasn't playing this game blind, not anymore. I spent that afternoon at a nearby cafe going over everything in my head. The safe, the trust, the lake house, the letter. Ray's voice kept echoing. We need to talk. Let's not make this ugly. That last part stuck with me. Let's not make this ugly, like we were still playing nice, like it hadn't been ugly for years. When I finally left the cafe, I had 3 missed calls, 2 from Ray, 1 from Lily. The message from Lily was short. They're talking about suing. Ray says there's a clause in the trust that might help them. I texted her back. There isn't. I checked. He says your dad altered the documents a year before he passed away. There's another version. He says it names the family. Another version. I didn't like the sound of that. I called my lawyer again. We arranged to meet first thing in the morning, and then I drove back to the lake house. Not because I was scared, but because if they were planning something, I wanted to make sure my place was locked down. Literally, it was a quiet drive, and the house looked just like I'd left it, glowing softly in the golden light. The air smelled like pine and distant rain. I stepped inside and walked through every room, testing locks, windows, the cellar door. All seemed fine, until the study, near the hearth. I spotted a fresh boot print. Not mine. No guests had been here. No contractors. The cleaners left days ago. I rechecked the entrances. No signs of forced entry, but someone had been inside. I called a locksmith that night, ordering every lock replaced. Front door, patio sliders, garage, even the shed. No risks now. The next morning, my lawyer, Tom, sat across from me, reviewing Carl's voicemail transcript. He frowned. They're posturing. You sure? I asked. Positive, he said. We registered the updated trust with the county. No prior version holds up. Any change would have needed your father's signature, notarized and filed. There's nothing. I exhaled. So Carl's grasping at tea. Straws. Tom leaned back. They're trying to spook you, hoping you'll fold. I didn't. That weekend, I welcomed my first guests at the lake house, a retired couple from Boston. They texted post-check-in, calling the place a dream. Thanked them. Their 5-star review rolled in days later, sparking a flood of booking inquiries. I sent another screenshot to the family chat. $42,186 earned. No words. Just silence in return. Until my doorbell chimed. Not Mom this time. Carl. He stood on my doorstep, exuding confidence, suit crisp, briefcase in hand, like we were about to broker a deal. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't respond, just stared. He sighed. "Look, things are strained, but we're kin. No need for legal battles." "Then why the briefcase?" I asked. His mouth twitched. "I'm offering a deal. The lake house is lucrative. A family asset, Ethan. You shouldn't bear it alone. We could split it 3 ways, maybe 4. I blinked, stunned. "You think you're entitled to this?" He didn't flinch. "Your dad valued family. He wouldn't want this divide." I gave a sharp laugh. "He trusted me. You mocked that, shunned me, called me an outsider." "You're overreacting," he snapped. "This is about fairness." "No," I said. "It's about profit." His face tightened. "I'm offering a fair split. You're young. This is a big responsibility. We can help." "You mean take a share?" I said. He didn't deny it. I stepped forward, making him retreat. "Carl, you and the others made it clear I was out. You pushed me aside. Now you want in. We can make this messy." I warned. "Court will drain you even if you win." I smirked. "Let's see who blinks first." I shut the door. 2 weeks later, a letter from Carl's lawyer arrived, demanding a freeze on the lake house earnings pending ownership review. Tom countered within hours, submitting the trust, registration records, dad's letters, and the notarized beneficiary list. Their claim was dismissed in 3 days. But they didn't stop. They accused me of stealing family keepsakes from the safe, painted me as deceitful. Sarah posted a cryptic update about people profiting off memories. I ignored it. I was ahead, with every renovation receipt, transfer, and message documented. History site. Photos of Dad and me crafting the lake house, scans of his letters, a detailed list of what I took from the safe, backed by legal proof. I closed with, "I claimed only what was mine. I just stopped letting you act like it was yours." The tide turned fast. Distant relatives, silent for years, reached out. Some apologized. Some praised me. A few booked stays at the lake house. Carl and Mom went quiet. The group chat died. Then one Sunday, a handwritten note arrived from Mom. Brief. "Ethan, I'm not sure I did right. Maybe I let Carl's voice drown mine. Maybe I leaned on old patterns. I don't expect you to forgive. Just know you were always Dad's truest heir. He'd be proud." Mom, I didn't cry, but I held that note for hours. Later that year, the lake house earned a spot in a travel magazine. I framed the piece, hung it beside a photo of Dad and me on the porch, tools in hand, sawdust on our clothes. Bookings pour in year-round now. Sometimes I visit alone, quiet weekends. I light the fire, sip tea on the deck, reread his letters. Each time I recall that night I left their house when they said I didn't belong at their table. They were right. I didn't. I deserved my own. And now I have it, with the finest view of the lake. More crazy Reddit stories coming your way. Keep watching Reddit Tales Times.